Okay, great. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm just going to run through just a small correction because of the technical challenges we had last week in terms of the participants joining the online session. We are actually going to move out the course start date to the 23rd because we still need to go through some administrational aspects and also announce the three draws for the courses to be studied by some of the students for free. So basically the purpose of today is basically just to tell you a little bit of where we come from and how the program works. We're also going to cover the two starting courses and sort of the career path in terms of the different courses we offer. And then at the end, you can ask any questions that you need. So basically, the two companies that's involved in our program is called InfoWest Studios, as well as Digital Geekaship. So basically, we geeks by profession. So the program was developed by the InfoWest Studios team initially, and we are a consultancy that works with companies from startups to listed companies, international companies in terms of delivering technology solutions. And I mean, we're passionate about building that technical capability in Africa, seeing that other countries like India and Brazil could have done the same. I believe we can do the same for Africa and give the youth of Africa way more job opportunities. So basically what we do, we do teach software development to young and old. We do have a school program where we expose school kids from the ages of 14 to 17 to coding. That courses we run during school holidays for kids, and they attend and interact with our students. We also take in matrics and even some graduates that are struggling to find work will often come on our programs as well, because we basically plug the gap in terms of the current education system and what the corporate industry really need in terms of software developers. So basically we train hotshot developers by hotshot developers. So the mentors and all the content that you have on the course has been developed by software engineers that's either in our team or that's been in our team. We also have mentors into our network in South Africa, and hopefully in future into some of the other countries where you will get access to mentors with lots of experience that will give you guidance and support throughout the course. What's important to note that our course is structured in such a way that you are ready to enter the job market after you've been with us for 6 months. So we've really looked at the graduates we took in from 2012 onwards and said, what's the gaps? Why does it take us so long to get these guys up and running if they've already studied for 3 years? So we basically trying to plug that gap by making the training modules more relevant, so that at the end of the 6 months, you're actually ready to hit the ground running. So we do provide career guidance and assistance. We will also give you that input from day one. So if you need advice from that, you can book a session with one of the mentors to also just guide you through the options. And we committed as a business to place our students after 6 months of studying with us. So our success rate in finding students work has been around about 85%. Where one of the corporates that we either interact with or that supports the students in our program will then take them up into positions in those organizations. Okay, so where did we start? DG did start in InfoWare as a business. So as I said, in 2011, 2012, we were sort of this new technology company on the block, and we had to figure out how do we compete. Being a small company, you often get squeezed by bigger corporates on pricing to be competitive. We also had to answer the question of huge youth unemployment in South Africa and Africa, and how do we get those youth involved and into the market or into the workplace quicker? And how do we aim to get these people effective? Because I think one of the realizations we had is that the issue that youth will struggle to find job opportunities, even if they've invested in some form of certification or degree or diploma, is that the skills, the practical skills being applied is not relevant to what these guys need. And as we all know, sometimes bigger corporates rather drive bottom line profits instead of making space for people to grow and learn. So our program is really aimed at bridging that gap. So making the youth and the software engineers that's just qualified more attractive to this market, so we can breach the gap of finding appropriate skills in a local market. So we ran some experiments basically from 2012 internally in our consulting business. And what we first did as a learning experience is we started creating a graduate program where we took in some graduates that already had a degree or a diploma or were in the process of qualifying that and just needed some practical experience. What we did is we bootstrapped a 2-week theoretical content course for them, and then they immediately moved into project implementation 2 to 4 weeks after that. And then support the further practical work that they do on the projects with additional theory or concepts that they needed to learn in order to be an effective software developer. So what we found out of that is, despite some of these guys having studied software engineering for 2 to 3 years, it still took us 6 to 12 months to get them effective. So the educational content was outdated. There were a lot of key practices that these students needed that they were not taught. And it didn't matter if they could master a language and couldn't write some code. We couldn't use them in the team because there's so much more to being a good software developer than just knowing a language and being able to write code. So we then decided there's definitely a need to rehash the basics. And we believe firmly that you don't need to study for 3 years, learning most things out of a textbook in order to be a hotshot developer and be effective and find a job. So the knowledge that they came into our environment was of little use to us, and we had to put in a lot of effort to get them to skill up. We also learned that the practical exposure and delivery exposure early on is very important, and that actually helps to ramp up people very quickly. So you can't sort of, in a non-corporate environment, learn how to be a coder. It's better to get exposure into the real world of technology solution delivery as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to introduce you to some of our mentors. We're constantly signing on new mentors. So just on the current program, so yesterday we signed up some more mentors. So this team constantly changes and grows as students comes and go. So Jomo Lumina is originally from Zambia. He's based in South Africa currently. Myself, Tanya, I can't remember if I introduced myself, born in South Africa. And Johannes Kekai, he's also from South Africa originally. Sean Matabaya is from Zim, and Gladstone Selemane is from Swaziland. We're all based in our campus in Midrand, Johannesburg, South Africa currently. So yeah, that's just the team in terms of mentors currently. So just a little bit about our approach on the program. We start with practice from the second week on the program, and with coding from the third week. So our modules are structured into weekly content modules, which is a mix between learning some theory and understanding the basic concepts, and then going into practice immediate for that week specific topic. We require students to spend 5 hours of coding a day. So it's a big commitment if you want to do the course full time. So it's practice, practice, practice. I cannot stress that enough, that as a developer, we learn through practice. The errors and the mistakes we make, etc. You can only learn and improve and become really good at what you do if you put your hands on the keyboard and you're doing the things for real. So what will happen, our weekly content is either introduced via Zoom call as we have today, or it's pre-recorded videos that has been done by one of the mentors in the team, either the current team or the previous team, and we share this via our learning management platform, which once you've been accepted into the program, we'll share your student account and you'll get access to the content from there. We also provide access to the mentors throughout the program. So we either do that through HipChat, which is like WhatsApp, but for corporate environments. So you can ask questions, either fellow students can try and assist or mentors. So we encourage you to do that as much as you can. And then we'll also have an events calendar that we share on our learning management platform, where there will be similar calls like we had tonight, where we'll do a screen share or a video call with the mentors, where you have opportunities to ask questions about what you're struggling with and get some guidance and support from there. Okay, so I've mentioned the event calendar. What will happen each week, you will get practical exercises that needs to be complete for you to demonstrate that you have achieved the outcome of the learning for the week. You will submit this on the channel that we communicate to you for the mentor to review. So one of the mentors would actually look at your practical exercises. They will do a code review and provide you with feedback individually. So this is done and scored weekly. So for each of the exercises, you will get a score and you will get specific comments that you would need to take and actually rework for the following week, and also improve going forward, because writing good code, as I said, that you can't just code in a language and manage. There's actually good and bad code, and these are the things that corporates look for. So what is good code? If you're going to write a coding assessment when you join a corporate for a job, they're going to look at how you write that code, and often that don't get taught. So there's really a good way to go about development and a bad way, and we will help you to understand what that is based on the feedback we provide every week. You'll have a scoring sheet that's personal to you. So each week we'll add new scores onto it and provide you feedback, which you could access at any time to look at what feedback has been provided. And at the end of the course, we will write a physical exam. That will also be a practical experience that will be reviewed and feedback will be given. So just a little bit, I always laugh on this topic a bit. And this topic is just around mentors. So this is based on experience we've had with other students. So I just want to come back to the fact that I rehashed that we really need people to practice. And you must understand that all the problems we give you to solve, we as mentors have solved already for a few years, being software engineers. So there's no point in us solving the problems for you. We're not going to give you step-by-step recipes that says you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to use this type of switching and use this method to solve the problem in this SDK. We don't have those type of conversations. We really need to see how you approach coding and solving problems, and then as part of the weekly review, we can give you the feedback to improve. So it's about you asking questions, not asking for the solutions, and then taking some of the feedback and guidance and actually coming up with your own approach to solving the problems that you will be given. So providing the feedback and improvement on how you code is really important for the learning of each person individually. Okay, so let's just visualize, which we call it a sprint because we also follow some agile practices, which I'll talk to in a bit. So the first day we introduce content and exercises. We generally run our week from Mondays to Fridays. You will work through the content and you will complete the practical exercises. If things are not clear here, that's where you will ask questions. The mentors will come back and provide guidance. If there's lots of similar questions, we'll set up a session. So that's on the collaborate part, where you can attend a mentor-led Q&A session online and actually interact with someone. Then the review, so you will submit, say, your exercises at the end of a Friday, and we'll review that and provide you feedback on your scoring sheet. And then the idea is that on the improve line, you will then take that feedback into the next practicals. So, and then we start the week again. So it's really a cycle, and the things that you learn in the first week, you will still keep on applying in every week that you move forward on the program. So we sort of have started with some basics, and then we ramp up the complexity of the topics that we cover right till the end. So it's really important for you to demonstrate a deep understanding of each of the week's content. Otherwise, you're going to struggle later on with more complex topics. Okay, so what do you need to succeed? So the first point is also something that we often see. I think if you're interested in technology and you spend time on the internet, you know there's a lot of content out there. The problem with the internet is that there's a lot of content that either doesn't work or it's old. So it's focused on an old version of a language that we are not using. So the methods and the SDK has changed. So you might find a solution to a problem and then you try and copy and paste it and it doesn't work. So what we generally advise is that stick to the content we provide. You can do research by all means and go about it, but what we've tried to do is distill the key principles of each of the week's content really down to a very simplistic summary of what we believe is important for you to understand. So it's really important for you to make sure that you understand the concepts. And understanding in software development doesn't mean we take a textbook and we summarize it end to end. It means that we actually have to get it. We need to practically know how to apply it and understand what the concept means in practice. Okay, so please don't skim through the content. If you skim through the content and just try and go to the exercises and then use the approach of searching all over the internet to solve it, you're going to struggle. You have to commit to solve the problems yourself if you really want to be a good developer, because developers don't solve each other's problems. Your biggest skill that you will develop over the course of this engagement will be to learn how to solve problems yourself in this complex technical world. Please, if you get stuck, ask questions. Don't disappear under the radar. That's why the mentors are there and other students are there to support, so we can actually help each other. Because the students, you also learn through your own teaching. So if you've mastered something and you think you've mastered it and someone else is experiencing a similar problem, your own learning just gets reinforced by helping someone else and explaining to them how to go about solving that problem without giving them the answers, obviously. Okay, so this is sort of our, well, I would say career, but also our training roadmap. So in order to become a hotshot developer, what does it take? So you can see here on the left, there's 2 courses that we're going to kick off with in April. The one is the Software Development Basics, which is basically the fundamental base module of all our courses. So if you've never studied software development, you will be required to go through this. Having said that, some of the students that already had a degree or a diploma that joined us on the program said their personal feedback was that they would encourage any developer to start there, because you don't get taught these things in the current tertiary environment to the extent that we go into the detail. So it's really good to just start from the beginning. So you will see the next step then in this sort of middle section is the intermediate technical software development. So that then completes the 5.5 months full, which then gives you the full stack web developer. So that's sort of the entry level qualification that you can start with in our space. So at the end of that, I'll go into more detail of all of these just now. At the end of that, you'll be able to write a full web application, going through databases, understanding services, understanding how to build a web front end, and how to deploy that. So how do you get it visible to users? What's important here, this is not a static site. This is not a site where we just write some HTML and display things. This is applications that runs in corporates, internet banking if you use it, Payza, it doesn't matter what you're using. It's applications that are really transacting. It's not just static websites. So it's complex. You'll learn all the basics that you need to in 5.5 to 6 months in order to get that understanding. There's then a few options you can do here. You can either decide to specialize in UX and UI web development. So here we're dealing a little bit more with the user experience and how do we design a flow and a navigation that's suitable to building proper applications. You can then add on a mobile development module. So mobile development, although there's a lot of practices that you would have had in place, it's a different language, it's a different environment that we develop in deploying applications, for instance, to the Google Store and iStore, etc. It works different to getting a web application out. So there's a lot of practices and different languages and techniques that is different in the mobile space versus a web application. And then the last bit that you can add on is the advanced technical track. So here we focus a little bit on DevOps practices. So we're going back into the back end more, not on the interface side. So we look at how do you build applications for scale using microservices. So I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So if you've completed these 4 modules, then you would have studied with us basically for 11 months. And then you will be a software engineer, which means you have mastered all the most complex aspects of software engineering, and with key focus on architecture as well, and not just development, which was covered in the web development and the web and mobile developer courses, for instance. Okay, so there's 3 sort of tracks or aspects that you will learn during the couple of months. The first one is focused mainly on software development. So this is coding. How do I code? How do I learn a language? How do I write good code? Then there's an aspect of managing software development using agile methodologies. So if you were in a real corporate environment, how do you work as a software developer in delivering that applications to the end users? So we incorporate agile project management principles, and you'll use that to manage your own delivery on the course as well. So you can get into understanding the main tools that's currently being used in corporates and how does that whole process work. And then thirdly, we focus on development practices. So those are the things that we often see lacking. You can't just write code and then be a developer. You need to, there's certain practices in terms of writing good code. How do you design good code versus bad code? How do you get an environment up and running to deploy that application in? Because it doesn't help you develop a solution and it sits on your own laptop or on a computer, but no one else in the world can access that. So how do we get this accessible to users? And what practices, how do we work together in teams? Because you often would work in teams when you are working on projects. It's very seldom that you will be a single developer on a project. So how do you collaborate with teams in code, etc.? So those are the 3 sort of fundamental blocks that we believe is important to become a hotshot developer. So I just want to stumble a little bit on the Agile software development lifecycle. So the tool that you will learn and be trained on to use is called Jira Software. Currently, Jira Software is the biggest or the best Agile project management tool in the world. And the preferred methodology for software projects to be managed is actually Agile. So firstly, we will teach you the main practices around Agile. What does Agile mean? How does it work? Etc. And then we'll show you how to use a tool that manages projects using the Agile methodology. So you'll learn how to work with requirements. You'll learn how to plan your work. How do you estimate your work? How do you then allocate those work into sprints? So sprints is generally 2 weeks or a week in our case, because our program runs in weekly cycles. How do you manage your work? And how do you show progress on your work using sprints? We'll show you how to review your delivery with your clients or management, and that would often happen through review sessions with mentors, and then you'll get exposure a little bit to the Scrum Master role as well as Agile project management. We often see that some developers, after they've coded for a while, tend to move into those roles. So you'll have a good understanding of what that means. And this is also something that corporates find attractive, if people can code, but they also understand how to manage their own work. Okay, so we're going to do a deep dive now into the software development basics. So this code is, this is the base module for all our courses. We assume that you've never coded before, and as I mentioned, some of our students that has coded before has said that they would recommend everyone to start here, because there's a lot of things that they did not know at all when studying elsewhere, that this helped them to become a more solid developer. So firstly, we focus on the main concepts of coding. So this is just all, we have these terminology that we throw around as technologists and developers that no one else that's outside of our industry understands what we're talking about, but it's really important in our world. So we'll go through those concepts. You can choose the language that you want to start off with, as Java, C# or JavaScript at this point. These are still 3 of the most widely used languages in the world. We will later on add Ruby and Python and 1 or 2 other languages, but at the moment that's the core focus. Development practices, and then at the end you'll be able to write a full backend application and deploy that as a library to be used by other applications. So we'll firm up that. So the aim of this is really for you to understand how to use a language and all the practices around development that you need in order to move forward. So the course structure is made up of 7 modules, and then 3 weeks of application development as well as design. So you'll get requirements to develop a backend application, design and develop that in teams, and your deliverable at the end of that would be your application, and then there will also be a final exam. The final exam will also have a practical component of coding as well as some theory. So as I said, source code fundamentals, you'll learn Bash, Git, Bitbucket. You'll learn test-driven development. You'll learn what tools to use to build and deploy your applications, as well as application design. And then, of course, lots of coding. You're going to code every day for the next couple of weeks. And the more you practice, the more problems you stumble across, the more problems you learn to solve, the better you will get at this. So once you are now done with software development basics, then what basically next? So you can split into sort of 2 parts. And this is a little bit of the career advice that we're giving already, even in this presentation, because we see people tend to be strong and that on the front end, and some people tend to want to work through the full stack. So we make the split at that point. So if we look here on the left-hand side for the full stack web development, you will see there's an intermediate module. So if you remember on the Hotshot roadmap, we had the software development basics module, which is the base starting module. So the next module that we put down is intermediate. So what do we learn here? So we learn 3 new languages. CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. We have different JavaScript frameworks we use that we'll introduce you to. You also learn how to design applications responsively and what frameworks to use to do that. So what does responsive web design means? It means that I can open a website, a URL with a web application on any phone, on any browser, and on any type of operating system and laptop, and the application would automatically respond and render that web application in a way that's readable and usable for the user. So that's really important in today's world of writing application. It's almost, when you don't do it, people look at you in a weird way, because it's just assumed that all applications will be responsive. You will also then get introductions into databases. So how do we store data? We work with 2 different databases, document databases and relational databases, and then also REST services. So how do you write an API? How do you make it available to your front end, or potentially for integration into other applications? And then we also teach you how to deploy that application to an application server. How do you set up that environment? What does that environment look like? So at the end of this, you basically have a fully running web application that you have designed, deployed, and made available to users over the internet, or alternatively in a corporate environment where the users are either internal or they're servicing other customers. If we go to the right-hand side, there's the front end and UX development part. So over here, you'll see we still cover REST services and a couple of things. So that's all on the front end, because your front end will communicate with a service layer into the back end. So, but what we focus on here more is visual design, user journeys, design thinking, and looking at navigation and personas, understanding your user, because the type of user that interacts with your application has different requirements. So if you have a super complex application, how do you actually get the complexity of the domain of the application delivered to the user in a simple way? So that's really important concepts so that's more in the user's hand. So what is the experience of the user when they're using your application? Where on the full stack web development side, you can see that there we actually focus a little bit more into the back end. We still do the front end, so you can do the basics of the JavaScript, etc. But you would technically work with a UX developer, etc., that would design the flow and the navigation of the users through the application, and then you will work together with them to implement that. Okay, so full stack web developer. I think I've covered most of this. We'll cover front end, REST services and APIs, as well as back end. And the course structure, we cover all the things in the basics, as well as the REST, HTML and JavaScript. And then, so we've sort of run through that. Oh yeah, something I just wanted to mention. This course is made up of 18 modules so it includes the 7 modules from the software development basics. And here we spent 4 weeks on application design and development in the team, and then a final exam at the end of that. So say after 6 months, because at this point you would have been with us for 6 months, so you basically a full stack web developer. So what happens after that? So you can decide to specialize further. This is generally the point where we recommend after the full stack that you get into the corporate environment and get some experience. The reason I say that is that as developers, we never stop learning. So if you want to choose a comfortable career where you sort of get to a point where you know everything, then this is not the career for you. You learn every day. There's new things coming out. So if you like to learn new things, and then this is definitely the career for you, and to play around with new exciting things and try out different approaches. So you can either then, on top of the web application or web developer experience, you can then add on the left-hand side our mobile development module. So this is where you learn how to write mobile applications. Now, what makes this different is that we don't have control over the device that the user has and all the complexities that sits in that space. And we have synchronization of problems between the device and the backend. So it's a different way to write applications because some of the information will be stored on the device, where in a web application that tends to not work in a similar fashion. We also work with different languages once again. So Android, iOS, cross-platform frameworks like Ahonic. So it's a different language again. So you can see by the time you're at this point, you would have learned one base language, Java, C#, JavaScript. You would have learned CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and then another language. So by the time you get to this point, you have already mastered 5 languages. And most good developers actually can move fairly easily between different languages and are proficient across more than one platform. Or if you don't want to move to mobile development, then you can do advanced technical development. So you will see that on the right-hand side. So here we get a little bit more into the back-end DevOps, more heavy technical things. Some people don't enjoy this. They enjoy more mobile front-end, what the user experience. This is more the back-end things that makes the application work, that the user that is not necessarily concerned about. So we'll look at load balancing and microservices and application architecture. So that's more focused on how do we scale applications when we have lots of users on board. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly, we're almost at the end of it. So I've just got a few slides left. Then I'll take some questions. I'll stop my screen share and we can actually just take some questions. So we're just talking about payment options. There's we've got a 30% upfront payment discount on all our courses. That is not paid by the 6th. We'll communicate the right date with you. This was just because that was planned at the end of last week. So we'll probably look at Friday this week, which I think is the 13th, or the Wednesday after that at the latest, but we'll communicate that to you if you're interested. Or we could do monthly payments. Those payments is done at the beginning of each month. So if we do basics over 3 months, or 2.5 months, there will be 2 or 3 payments. So you get to pay off the course over a longer period. We do, in this case, if we don't receive payment, remove access to the content, because that's obviously important for us to get that going. Just to talk some figures, yeah. So on the software development basics, which is anyway the first building block of the full stack web development, I'm just going to talk rand and dollar prices, but if there's another currency you want the pricing in, we take payments in different currencies online, so we'll make that information available to you. It's 4899 rand. With the discount, that works out to 4,329 rand 30 cents. And then on the dollar side, just to put it in a different currency, is 499 and then 349 dollars and 30 cents. So that is if you do the upfront payment. That's actually a fairly good deal. And then on the full stack development, we're looking at 9798 discounted to $6858.60, and then on the dollar side, it's $980 discounted to $686. So that's for the 30% discount upfront. Monthly payments, you'll do 2 payments. I think we're actually going to split this out to 3 payments, because based on our last student intake, there's 2 of the modules that is a bit technically challenged. So we've decided to extend to make provision for additional exercises for students to get that concept grasped properly. So that pricing here is 4,899. If you did that over 2 payments, it basically works out to 2,449.50 in 2 payments. On the dollar side, it's $499, and if you do that over 2 payments, it's $249.50. Full stack development paid off over 5 payments, which works out to 1,959.60 per payment in rand, and then on the dollar side, $196, 5 payments of those. Okay, so how do you start? We have an online platform for registration and payment. We'll just make sure that all the currencies, because we did launch a few currencies, but if there's a currency that's not there and you want to pay in your local currency and we do the conversion on our side, then you can also just request that and we'll just activate the relevant currency. Don't look at the dates. What will happen is, because we've pushed it out, you won't receive your details on the 13th, but the Friday after that, because 13 April is this upcoming Friday. You'll also receive on number 3 your tool login details. So this is for our online learning management platform, where you will receive your event calendar to see when the sessions are set up that you've got to attend. When we have ad hoc Q&A sessions, as well as where you will access your content, as well as all your practical exercises. We use a couple of tools, so we'll provide you all of that details. We'll brief you in the first week, so don't worry about that now. There will be a compulsory kickoff session on the 23 April for all students between 9 and 11. We'll depending on where students are coming from that register, we might make available 2 slots or might adjust this time. So this is on GMT +2 time zone, which is linked to the South African time zone, but we can handle that and just adjust. During the first week, you will install all the necessary tools that you need to get your environment up and running so that you can start development. We'll start the week then on the 23rd, and we'll complete that on the Friday. So you'll be required to hand in all of your assessments or code at the end of that week. And then the mentor at number 8 will provide you feedback by Monday or Tuesday the next week. And then as the cycle starts, so new content will start on the Monday, although you might only receive feedback on Tuesday from the mentor on your score sheet and feedback sheet of the previous week's content. Okay, so I know you are on a WhatsApp group, so you're more than welcome to ask any further questions that we don't deal with just now, or issues that you've got. We've got an email address as well, if you prefer email, which is info@digitalgeekaship.co.za. You can also use Facebook Messenger to send us a message, or the WhatsApp group that you're already part of. We'll get back to you from there. If need be, we'll set up an online chat or a phone call with you if it's difficult to resolve the issue over chats. So please just be in contact with us. We're going to announce the winners actually on the 13th. Out of the sessions we've had, we're going to do a random draw of 3 people, and you will be entered will receive the course for free. We would request probably a photo for you, share it on social media, and just notify you in person directly. We will also need to see if it's possible for you to attend the course, because we would really like to get some software engineers out at the end of the course. So your commitment is going to be crucial. We don't want someone that is just going to drop off halfway through it. So you need to demonstrate a commitment to complete the course. Yeah, and we came to our questions and answer session. So I'm just going to stop my screen share and then see if there's anyone that's got some questions. You can either just use the chat or for the messaging, the chat or the Q&A part. So I'll just give you some time to submit some questions you might have. Okay, so I've just got a question that I'm a A+ course student that didn't finish. Is there any other special requirements? The answer in short is no. Just to note that for all the attendees and the course participants, what we will do is we will require you to write a problem-solving exercise, or it's not test, but it's basically there's a specific few games that we play, so we can just see how your mind works in terms of solving problems, because that way thinking is really important for you to be effective as a developer. So outside of that, we'll give you the feedback. There's a video interview you'll have to do, but there's no other special requirements. Yeah, so what kind of work we do and with startups? Yeah, so we work from guys, entrepreneurs that wants to take new products to market, that either has like managed to get some funding together. So we have got clients like that. Quite a lot of them. I think we've, as a company, we've helped to launch 12 tech businesses over the last 4 years. So there's some of those guys we work with, and we also work with yeah, like listed companies. So I can't share more information in terms of who our clients are, of course, but it's a vast number of companies, ranging from banking to finance to automotive to manufacturing to recruitment. It's really, we work in a lot of different industries. Another question that came through is just, will the lessons be presented live? It depends. Some of them will be live and some of them will be pre-recorded. So it depends on the topic, and but the lessons that will definitely be presented live is if we have a Q&A session, we will accumulate some of the questions we'll accumulate some of the questions throughout the week, and if we see some similarities, we'll actually set up a live session where you will get to interact with the mentor. Okay, so we do have some yeah, on the books, we do have a lot of content, as well as agile book that we give access to people to provide some content. So yeah, so that is I'm not sure. I don't know if you can maybe clarify, but all the content is available online. Okay, what is the difference between week 2 practice and week 3 coding? I'm not sure what this is, but what we basically said is you'll start coding from week 3. The first 2 weeks of the content is theory and some practical exercises that's related to Bash and Git, which has got nothing to do with coding. That is just because you need to commit your code via Bitbucket for the mentor to review. So you need to look at that information. So you need to learn how to use those tools before we can start the week 3 coding, and then you will submit your code to those platforms for the mentors to access and give you feedback. Okay, after the course, will we receive a soft copy of a certificate? Yes, if that is a requirement, you can definitely request it. We do have a electronic copy that's also available, so you can just request that, and we can print that out and send it to you. What if I miss a lesson and I'm at work and not available? We will have a session recorded if it wasn't pre-recorded. So if we do have a session like today, the session was recorded. If the session is actually held live and it hasn't been pre-recorded in previous training sessions, then it will be made available. So that just sort of links up with the previous question, where if someone some of the sessions will be pre-recorded, so the Q&A sessions will be live, but you will actually just have access to a video where one of the mentors would step you through the content. Okay, I'm glad the questions on the books was access. So we've got a learning management platform where all the content is uploaded, which you could also download. And so if you have access to the internet at intermittent sections, you could download the content onto a device and access it offline. And then only when you need to resubmit your answers and questions, then you can reconnect to the internet. Okay, a question on, will we be working on real life problems or just problem statements? So problem statements are initially in while you're learning the theory and the basic concepts, we have specific problem statements that's designed for the course. But at the end of the course, where we are developing a fully fledged application and you will be working in teams, we will be working on real life problems, incorporating all the learning across the different modules up to that point. Sorry, okay, it doesn't seem like we've got any other questions. So if you do, something comes up after the session today, please feel free to engage with us on those platforms. We will also share those details with everyone if you haven't taken it down. So you can just interact with our team throughout this week to clear out any aspects that you would need further clarification on. Thanks for joining us.